What's happening was Georgic PR here. As promised, here's my review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So, of course, like the first movie, the cast is great, especially on new additions such as Palm Clementis as Mantis, also Debicki as Isha, and of course, Mr. Kurt Russell as Ego. One performance in particular in this movie that was just amazing was Michael Rooker, reprising his role as Yondu. Michael Rooker is one of my favorite actors. He's Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy. He was Merle in The Walking Dead. So yeah, one of my favorite actors. And I do think his performance was better in this movie than the first one. They also mixed Volume 2 in this movie. I'm still getting used to it because I find the first one better. But after watching the movie, I actually like most of the songs now. But like I said, I like the one from the first movie better. The effects and visuals are great in this movie. And overall, I actually really like this movie better than the first one. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention that Baby Groot and Drax were the funniest characters in this movie. And this movie is actually filled with a lot of jokes, so it's a really funny movie. That's one thing I actually like about it, is because it knows when to be funny when it has to be funny, and it knows when to be serious when it has to be serious. Okay, so spoiler alert. So you haven't seen the movie, go watch it and then come back here. Unless you don't care about the spoilers and just want to be spoiled anyway. So yeah, I'm gonna give you 5 seconds, and then I'll talk about the spoilers. Okay, let's start with spoilers. So let's start off with the villains in this movie. Like many Marvel movies, the villains don't usually are very memorable, and that's the case with Ajisha and the Sovereign people. I feel like they weren't necessary in this movie. They were only necessary to introduce a certain character that appears in the end, one about the post-credit scenes, but I'll get to that later. And same thing goes with the Ravagers. Well, I did like Taserface. They were only on like 3 scenes in the movie, and then that's it. I'm actually disappointed with this because I was actually expecting to see more of Taserface after seeing his really cool design at the Comic-Con panel for the movie last year. But in a positive note, if it wasn't for the Ravagers, we wouldn't have one of my favorite scenes in this movie. So there's a scene where the Ravagers they capture Rocket and Groot, and they betray Yondu because they say he's gotten soft. And when they escape, you have Yondu with the arrow just killing everyone, and then they walk to this like ship, which is like an escape pod, and then Rocket and Yondu just continue killing them and prevent them from getting in. And it was just such an awesome scene. Okay, so there is another villain in this movie, but I will talk about it in just a moment. The characters in the movie, you can see how they've changed the first movie. And then there's characters like Nebula and Yondu, where you actually learn more about them, which makes you care more for them. And even if they don't appear much, this movie has some great additions, some really famous actors. For example, Sylvester Stallone and Michael Rosenbaum. They play Takara Cord, aka Starhawk, and Martin X. Okay, I had to Google the Martin X name because it wasn't mentioned in the movie. And then David Hasselhoff is mentioned a lot of times in the movie. And he does appear in one scene where Ego does transform into him, disguises him. And speaking of Ego, what a twist. I actually didn't see that coming. He is, I think is the main villain of the movie. And compared to the other villains that appear in this movie, I think he's a very memorable character. His plan was not that great, but he was such a cool villain, especially in the final fight of the movie. By the way, love the Pac-Man reference. But onto a negative side, he destroys Star-Lord's Walkman. Not cool, Ego. So of course this leads to the ending of the movie, where Yondu unfortunately dies saving Peter, and his final moments as well as his funeral. Damn. This year, both Logan and Guardians have accomplished something impossible. They've made me cry. But other than that, Nebula also leads the team, but I hope we see more of her in the future Marvel movies. And before we talk about the 5 post-credit scenes, I actually want to mention there are some Easter eggs in the end credits. You have Cosmo the Space Duck and Howard the Duck. They both appear in the credits. And Howard the Duck actually does appear also early in the movie. He's in the planet where the Ravagers are. And another character that appears in the end credits actually Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster that's gonna appear from Thor Ragnarok in the next Thor movie. Okay, so post-credit scenes in order. So the first one, we see Sean Gunn's character, Kraglin, just messing around with Yondu's arrow. And let's just say it doesn't end well for Drax. Next scene, you have Stakars, Sylvester Stallone's character, just reuniting with his ex-teammate. And I hope we see more of them in any future movie. Then the next scene, you have Teenage Groot just playing video games, and that scene was just hilarious. And like I said, there's a post-credit scene involving the Saurian people, where you have Ayesha talking that she created it's something called Adam, which is the comic book character Adam Warlock. And finally, you have Stan Lee's cameo in the movie. He also did make a scene earlier in the movie, but this one also appears in the ending. So you have him talking to the Watchers. I'm really happy they're in this Marvel Cinematic Universe now. But you have them talking to the Watchers, and I think this basically confirms that all of Stan Lee's characters are basically the same, and he's probably a Watcher as well. So that's it for this really long review. I give this movie 4 stars. I do think this movie is better than the first one, and I do recommend watching it if you haven't seen it yet. So that will be all for this review. Bye everyone.